Welcome to the Hardheaded podcast, where we're going to be taking a practical and realistic approach over the next few episodes on the 23 traits that it takes to be a better father, better dads to our kids. Join us as we embark on this journey. All right, welcome back to another episode of Hardheaded. I'm your host, Matt Amos. With me, as always, Chet Sears, Troy Trussell.
Yo.
We're continuing on in our series, 23 Qualities of a Good Father, Traits and Characteristics by Jeff Campbell from New Middle Class Dad.
.com.
Today, we're going to be covering model the behavior that you expect from your kids, explain to them the why behind the rule, and give yourself a timeout when needed. So kicking it off, modeling the behavior that you expect from your kids. And I think I touched on this a little bit last week when I was talking about my problem with swearing. He calls it swearing here. Instead
cursing,
of
cussing,
or being profane.
Expletives.
And but it goes beyond that. You know, do you want your kids to be respectful to women? Put that example in front of their mother. You know, do you want your daughters to know how a woman should be treated? Treat your wife that same way, you know. And I struggle with some of this sometimes because I do get frustrated, and I swear or curse a lot, and I shouldn't.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that going on right before this episode
started.
Matter of
fact, right before, but I did bleep myself. Yeah. I didn't actually say the whole word. I just said the word that I said a couple of days ago.
First letter.
First letter in a very heated conversation. But you know, that example, leading by example, goes a long way, not just in being a father, but anywhere in life, leading by that example that you want others to follow. Because we as men are the leaders. And I think that we need to reclaim that role in the family, because I know that a lot of dads just kind of give it over to mom and let mom do a lot of stuff, and we as dads figure that, hey, we're working, we're providing that income for the family, and that's kind of our input. But what we're trying to get out of this whole series and what we're doing here is trying to break that cycle and being more involved as dads. Creating better kids that are more well-rounded for society, which in turn makes society better as a whole. And the way that we do that is leading by example. What do you guys think?
No, I think that's good. And one of the areas I've noticed, it's the culture. What are you laughing at now?
I'm terrible. Like, I'm a bad dad.
Oh.
It just says, the very next line, sorry, says, do you lose your cool every time someone cuts you off in traffic?
Yeah.
And I could think of literally like 3 days ago. I said some bad. I don't flip people off anymore. I give them the thumbs down.
Yeah.
But I said some choice words when I gave that dude thumbs down. Then I look over at my daughter and I was like, yeah, I'm sorry. I shouldn't.
Yeah.
So what is this idiot doing?
But I think, one of the moving to the Great Plains from the Deep South.
The Midwest?
One of the things that I did not like about here is the lack of
yes sir, no sir,
respect.
Yes ma'am, no
that
ma'am.
Kids have towards adults, and but I've noticed that my kids in certain circumstances call people what I call them, and so if I want to show respect to some elders, I mean your dad called his father-in-law Mr. Tatum
till day he died.
Yeah. And so your dad was, 70, and
I modeled that. And the first time I called Ricky Mr. Parker, he said, "Oh, don't ever call me that. Call me Ricky."
Yeah.
Then the door was open,
right,
for me to do that.
But I mean, from a cultural perspective, though, if my kids, when I was a kid in the South, it just came out. That's how you do things. Like it is modeled. Everybody. No matter how old you were, if you're talking to somebody that's older than you, you put the tag on it, Mr., Mrs., Miss. It was just there, and that modeling creates that culture. And let's bring that down into your house. If you never model what you want your kids to be doing, it's not going to happen.
Yeah,
it's not going to stick. And so you definitely have to demonstrate it. You need to show what that's like. And there's the outcome is from the culture, not necessarily from your words of instruction. If you instruct one way and you don't behave that way, your instruction is going out the window.
And I think it's one of those things too that later on they'll continue to use that more and more. Maybe it's not the cool thing to do, outside of the house. They'll play cool in front of you, but in front of their friends, something different. But I think because I was kind of the same way, but now it's like super ingrained into me. Yes sir, no sir. Whatever it is. And my kids will say, oh, Mr. Chet or Mr. Troy, whatever. That's just what they do because they've been raised that way.
Right.
I know they don't do that when they're away from us.
Yeah.
But moving into the future, like I was that way. I would do it around my parents. When I get around my friends, something different. And then now it's yes sir, no sir, whatever. There's always a sign of respect there. And it just always stayed with me.
Well, and so, I mean, with my daughters, if they, whenever that comes, if I don't murder the kid first, if they start dating somebody or whatever, there's certain ways that they should have expectations around how that young man is going to treat them. And so I need to model what that looks like. So when they don't see it, they know, hey, that's not good. Like, my dad would not have let me walk through the door first or not open the door for me. Or my dad always made it a point to make me walk on the inside of the sidewalk, not the outside of the sidewalk. Those kinds of things. Demonstrate it, and so that they can identify what's good and bad when I'm not around. And I do, kind of getting into the next one, I do explain why that is. Like, I value you. I don't want you in the most dangerous place while we're walking in the parking lot. I want you, and it's in a little bit safer place. Those kinds of things. So I think if you want your kids to be polite, you need to be polite. If you want your kids to treat your wife with respect, you better treat your wife with respect and talk to her in a polite manner. If you want your kids to talk back to your wife, you talk back. It's that modeling needs to be there. Speaks much louder than words.
All right.
I guess it's me, right? I'm hosting.
Yeah.
So moving on, number 8, explain to them the why behind the rule. So Chet, you were touching on that.
Yeah. I mean, this is a story we told a couple months ago, Stone not knowing why you don't wear a hat at the dinner table. He just assumes because you pray before you start and I just never put it back on.
Yeah.
And, so be descriptive. A lot of times our kids, especially our younger kids, just don't know why. So tell them why. Don't just do the thing that you want modeled. Why are you doing it this way? There's I may have told this story like a year or two ago, but it's one I use quite a bit at work on a granddaughter moving in, getting married, moving into her home, invited her mom and her grandmother over for dinner. She's going to cook in her own kitchen for them for the first time. And she learned all these recipes from her mom who were passed down from her grandmother. And so she invited everybody in and said, I'm going to cook that pot roast that you've always cooked, and I've got your recipe, and I wanted to turn out just like you did it. And they're like, okay, well, so we'll be a part of this. We're going to be in the kitchen with you as you're going through this. And it's just a great, woman time, lady time with, mom and grandma. So she gets the pot roast out. The first thing she does is she cuts the end off of it, because that's what her mom told her. The first thing you do is you cut the end off of this roast, and then you set that aside, wrap it back up, put it in the fridge. And then you have with the end cut off, then you put it in the pot and brown it, all this other kind of stuff. So she gets all her stuff out, the pot and all that kind of stuff, gets the roast out, cuts the end off of it, wraps it up, puts it in the fridge. And her grandmother says, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "Well, my mom said the first thing that you always did when you cooked this recipe is you would cut the end of the roast off and put it and put the end in the fridge, and then you just had this left, is what you would use." And she said, "Honey, the reason I did that is because my biggest pot was smaller than the roast. And so I had to cut the end off of it so it would fit in the pot. Your pot is massive. You could put the whole roast in there." And
Nice.
So the idea that we just do what we see If we don't know the why, there may be a different application of what you saw. And so as a dad, it's important to tell your kids why. Why are we doing it this way? Why do we go to church? Not just that we go to church. Why are we going to church? Why are we not going to go to that tournament this weekend and we are going to go to camp? Those kinds of things. We need to have those conversations with them.
Yeah.
Why can't I watch this video?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really important to do that.
That's one of the main ones for me.
And the older that they get, I think the more explaining that you do. Because sometimes there's just not a comprehension. Let's sit down and let me tell you why, as a toddler, you shouldn't be punching your sister in the face. It's like, if you do that again, we're going to have problems. You don't need to necessarily do the whys there, but the older they get, the more explaining I think you need to do. Helps them develop, think for themselves, and understand the world, understand it, not just behave in it.
Well, and this is a big one for me, especially when they've done something wrong and they get in trouble, right? Because me growing up, my dad he used these words a lot. Sorry, Dad. I know you're not listening, but Mom is. He would say, because I said so, or because I'm your dad and I told you to do it. I mean, I got that every time. I mean, I was a bad kid. I got in trouble a lot.
You're really bad.
I
he
got
ran out of wise. He's like,
just shut up.
It doesn't matter what I say right here. You're not going to listen anyway.
Yes. But that, honestly, that affected me. And so when I became a dad and my kids got a little older, I've made it a point almost every time, probably too much the other way now, like explaining myself, like, this is why you're in trouble. This is why, you're having these consequences because do you not understand what you did here?
Yeah.
And so we get into some pretty great detail. Now, there are some times, I have said those two lines too, just for sake of time.
Well, and the reality is you're not giving up. You don't need to go to the point where you're giving up your authority for whatever reason there is.
Yeah.
You are the authority in their life, and especially the younger kids. You have to tell them, you need to do what I say.
Yeah.
And I don't have to explain myself every time. I don't have to answer to you.
Right. Yeah. And
I want to educate you, but I don't have to answer to you.
Yeah. And Finn, our youngest, he's 5. He probably hasn't got many explanations of why, because he knows why he's in trouble when they're that young.
Finley is getting such the education of his older brothers.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
He should be like the wisest of all kids coming out of
should be
seeing what happens. I'm not going to do that.
And so moving on to number 9, give yourself a timeout when needed. So, your kids are asking why, and you're trying to think of the reason to give them why, but you're just in the moment. You're like, you're about to go off on them.
Yeah.
Take some time for yourself to cool down and collect your thoughts, and then come back in a moment where you're not as heated.
Yeah.
And you can have a rational discussion over it.
A rational discussion around something that extremely frustrated you will go so much further in preventing from that issue happening again than a blow up, a temper tantrum.
Because we get heated, we talk to them. Well, they're going to give that same energy back.
Oh yeah.
And then that's going to make you even more mad because why are you, excuse me?
I've had one of my kids go, "Where are you going?" And I'm walking down the hall to my room saying, "I need a minute," just because I'm about to lose it.
Right.
And it's not going to be good.
I'm in timeout.
It's not going to be good for anybody. I've never used that, but I think
I put myself in timeout.
I might start using that if ever happens again, which I'm sure it will. But
in that emotion. So one of my timeouts was that I gave myself. I know which daughter. I'm not going to name names, but there was a moment of fury from my daughter, aimed right at me, and it ignited an extreme emotional response that I was about to yell, scream, who knows. And instead, I gave myself a timeout by walking to my toolbox. There was a door slammed in this tirade. And I just quietly turn around instead of reacting in the way that my emotions really wanted to get me there. I walked to the garage, got my toolbox, got the flathead screwdriver and a little hammer, walked right back downstairs and popped the hinges off the door, the pins out of the hinges, and took the door with me. Didn't say a word. I did say like
Hashtag assassin.
Yeah, try to slam the door now, like one of those, but like I'm very upset. And the exclamation point on her tirade was slamming the door. You can't slam a door you don't have. So I just quietly went, got the tools, and came back and removed
I can't tell you how long my daughter went without a door. It was a long time.
Yeah.
I did this. Yeah, we did the same thing. It was a while too.
There's your tips and tricks. There's a tip and trick, which you mentioned. That's a little.
I've threatened that one, but I hadn't had to do it.
I'll just do it. It's so easy.
Well, I hadn't had to do it yet.
Yeah. Just go in there. Just do it for fun. Just mess with them.
Now our daughter, like somebody locked the door.
Provoke your kid to anger.
Yeah.
No,
so you can take the door off.
She had one of those key locks, and we never changed the locks when we moved in this house. Yeah. We did it on the outside, but not the inside. And we couldn't figure out why they had this door lock on it anyway. But Finley locked it one day. We couldn't get in.
You could get in.
No, we couldn't. It was like a key. And then we tried shimmying.
Because I know you've broken into stuff in your day.
But you can't, the way the thing was turned, you couldn't shimmy it.
Oh.
Because it was turned the other way.
You need a string. You need like a sandwich wire tie.
Oh, well.
I know, dude.
I got to kick the door in. Yeah. It was fun. I just kicked it in.
Did you really?
Yes.
Was he away from the door?
Oh, well, nobody was inside.
Oh.
Nobody was inside the door.
Yeah. Did you kick it, or you throw your body against it?
Oh, I kicked it.
Yeah?
Yeah. Like,
let me guess, you did a front.
One try? One try?
I took two.
Yeah?
Because I was a little timid on the first one.
Yeah?
But yeah.
Did you front kicked it, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, you didn't donkey kick it. Donkey kick, you got to.
Donkey kick's the way to go.
Donkey kick.
Yeah? But then your back is to the threat on the other side of the door.
Well, there's no threat.
That's why you have a team.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you donkey kick and let the team take care of it.
There was no threat on the other side of
this
door.
Did you give it like a Karate Kid?
Probably. I don't know.
That's awesome.
It was fun.
Did you change the locks yet?
No, it actually...
Because if you do that again, I want to be the one that kicks it in. You call me. I'll come over.
Well, yeah, we had to change. It broke. It busted the whole doorknob, but it didn't break the. I mean,
the frame.
It broke the door a little bit, but it like came back together, so we didn't have to replace the door. We just had to replace the knob.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Well, if you guys are ever wanting to know, and my birthday's in September, I would love a lockpick set as a birthday present.
A
lockpick set.
Yeah.
What are you getting into in your age?
Huh? Well, I have defeated
a little cat burglary.
Early on in my life, I learned how to break into locked doors from the mechanism. Not like a deadbolt, but any kind of normal latch. And I want to take it to the next level. I just, I want to keep advancing my knowledge. Anyway, sorry we went down a path there. Give yourself a timeout. I think it'd be awesome if you told your kids, especially your young ones, that if you put them in timeout, that I need a timeout, and then just walk out of the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need a minute. Yeah. So moving on, Chet, looks like going to talk Proverbs 1:8.
Yeah, right? Proverbs 1:8. Hear, my son, your father's instruction, and forsake not your mother's teaching. Naturally, this verse is geared towards the kids. But if you are not giving instruction or teaching to your kids, they don't have the opportunity to hear it. So in the loudest words that you can provide your kids is your behavior, not your words. And that kind of ties back into the first thing that we covered on this episode is model the behavior you expect from them. Don't just tell them the behavior you want out of them, but model it, and that will come through loud and clear. And it would be so much harder for your kids to forsake that instruction and teaching.
Perfect. Well, next week, we're going to cover boundaries, expectations, and protecting your kids. So we'll look forward to seeing you back next week again. Let us know what your thoughts are on this series by commenting on the video or letting us know on social media. However, you can get a hold of us and let us know.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for listening to the Hardheaded Podcast. Don't forget to share this podcast with others to help us get the word out.
Also, if you haven't yet, please rate and review the show. This helps our podcast show up in other people's suggested shows that may or may not have listened to us before.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.